Hi guys, I'm going to talk to you today about the new mid-seasonal changes to mages, mage items, and the dragon. So these changes will probably be happening in 5.9 is what I've heard, but mid-season, so the next month and a half probably. Okay, so the changes to Malzahar. So Malzahar's passive, when he hasn't taken direct damage for a period of time, he becomes invulnerable to CC for a short time. So that's friggin' ridiculous OP. His Q's the same, still does the whole thing and silences them. His W is now his old passive, where before he could spawn voidlings after 4 spells. Now he can summon voidlings, and then once they attack a champion or a monster, you can summon another voidling. And then the cycle keeps going, and when 3 or more voidlings are active, they gain bonus attack speed. His E is still the same. Got the whole AIDS thing going, and his ult is his W and his R put together. So it's like his suppress in one spot with my W under it, with the whole pool under it. So his ult now and his W with the pool is what Malzahar's ult is going to be. The brand changes. So his passive is still the ablaze thing, where his spells make the target ablaze, and his Q, W, and E and ult all do the special effects if you have blaze on the enemy champion or minion. And now they can stack. The blaze can stack. So if you hit 3 spells on a champion or whatever minion, it detonates, and then in an AoE it does a AoE damage. Now Vladimir, his passive is the same, gains health for ability power and ability power for health. His Q, if you use it twice, the 3rd time he gains damage and movement speed. His W is still the pool. His E, now he charges up with his E this time, and as you charge it you lose health, and when you release it you unleash a spear of blood. At full charge it slows Vladimir while he holds it, and kind of like Zarath's Q, is it his Q? Where he charges up and it slows him. That's kind of like how Vladimir's E is going to be. While he's charging up it'll slow, and then when he releases it it'll slow the enemy that he uses it on. Okay, his ult's the same, and Vladimir heals for each enemy hit with his ult. Okay, instead of her old passive where she, when she dies, she does some true damage in a skill shot. Now she has passive, kind of like a Lowry's tentacle, she has passive seeds. So if an enemy steps on a seed, it dies, and if you cast a spell on the seeds, you get a plant that's gonna attack your enemies for you. The more plants that are attacking the same enemy, the less damage they'll do. Her Q, instead of it being in a circle, it's gonna be in like a Malzahar shaped attack, like a little T, not really a T shape, it's like straight across in front of you. And of course it activates the plants that you have there. Her W now still spawns the plants, and when you, still spawns the plants. Her E is the same, and her ult is the same. Velka's passive still does the true damage on 3 stacks, but it also gives deconstruction stacks on the enemies, which we'll get to in a minute. His Q is the same, his W is the same, His E now knocks them away from him. Okay, now his ult. Remember what I said about his passive, the deconstruction? Well, his ult does more damage. It actually does true damage. His ult actually does true damage if you have the deconstruction stacks on him. So it's probably very important to get those deconstruction stacks on him before you ult. Cassiopeia's passive, she gains movement speed per level. Her Q is the same. If it same as not usually is, she throws her Q out in a skill shot, and she gains movement speed if it hits them and poisons them. Her W has the same effect as the old W, except it's in an arc, so it's in a huge arc. Her E is not spammable anymore. If the target's poisoned, it'll do additional damage, and if the target dies, she regains the mana back. And it also heals her, but it does not, it's not spammable anymore. And her ult is the same. And there's a summary of the champions. Annie. So Tibbers now, I guess his AI is improved. He now mauls Annie's stun targets. Swain now sends his bird Beatrice to a targeted location to cripple enemies. Fiddlesticks, if you stand still for a moment, he'll gain a movement speed boost. Ziggs can execute turrets if they're under a certain amount of health with his satchel charge. Syndra's, kind of like Zyra plants, the Syndra's balls spawn passively, so I'm guessing more ult damage, because the more spears you have out, the more damage you do. Zerath, barrages, if you hit a barrage, you get another barrage, up to the maximum barrages you can have. So if you hit one, you can get another one, and another one until it's the maximum that you're allowed to have. Anivia, his ult expands, so kind of like Cassiopeia's old W, how it expanded in size. Anivia's ult now does that. It gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and the bigger it is, the more damage it does. Viger's passive, now I'm not sure if they took away his Q farming ability power, but I really hope that they have. His new passive, when his abilities, when he hits champions with his abilities, when he kills minions, and when he kills champions, he gets ability power. Okay, UAP items. Tear of the Goddess. So, refunds a portion of your mana cost. So I guess your spells now cost less. Passive mana charge. Grants mana for each spell you cast. No longer has mana regen, but you gain mana every 8 seconds. So I'm not sure how much mana you gain every 8 seconds, but that's what it does. Catalyst. So the item that can be built into Rod of Ages currently now, instead of it healing on level, healing mana and restoring health, now a portion of damage taken is converted into mana to yourself, and a portion of the money you spend is given to you in health, up to a certain amount. Chalice of Harmony. If your health percentage is higher than your mana percentage, you gain mana. If your mana percentage is higher than your health percentage, you gain health. So if your health's lower, you gain health. If your mana's lower, you gain mana. Pretty much. Hextech Revolver. Used to have Spell Vamp, no longer has Spell Vamp. Damaging an enemy with a basic attack shocks them for bonus magic damage. So, single target, extra damage. Lost Chapter. Stepping Stone from Morellonomicon. So I guess this builds into Morellonomicon. Gives ability power and mana. Upon leveling, restores a portion of the holder's maximum mana over 3 seconds. So I guess that's like a kind of a mini Rod of Ages, or Catalyst, the old Catalyst, since the new one's gonna be changed, so it's gonna kind of just restore mana after you level. I don't know what they changed about the Fiendish Codex, because it gave AP and cooldown before. So I'm not sure what they changed there. The Hextech Gunblade. New passive, Omnivore. Instant heal for a portion of damage dealt, including physical, magic, and true damage. This effect is reduced for AoE. And its active deals instant magic damage and slows the target. I think that's pretty similar to what it was. I think they just changed this passive here. So instead of it doing like so much spell vamp and so much lifesteal, it just heals for a portion overall of all the damage dealt. Hextech GLP 800, so this is a new item. So this is made with Hextech Revolver, which is the old lifesteal item. Catalyst, the new updated version of the Catalyst that created Rod of Ages. A portion of damage taken is gained as mana. So you get mana back and you get damaged. Spending mana restores a portion of spent health. So that's just like Catalyst. So that's got the Catalyst passive, and it's also got an active. Fires a spray of icy bolts, dealing magic damage and slowing enemy champions. So that's like the old Frost Queen's claim, where it just had like a spit out of a frost bolt. So it's basically gain mana back when you take damage, gain health back when you spend mana, and the old Frost Queen's claim active. Hextech Proto Belt 01. I don't know why they do these weird numbers at the end. But anyway, so this is another new item. Made from the Hextech Revolver, the Kindle Gem, which is a tanky kind of item. That gives the health and the cooldown reduction. Firebolt. Active. Dash forward and unleash a ring of firebolts that deal magic damage. Now that's pretty cool because a lot of mages don't have any, you know what? Something that Annie would like love. Like instead of flashing, you can dash forward. Like that's like a free flash, in my opinion. I mean, I haven't seen how this works because they haven't released it, but I can just imagine a dash forward on Annie instead of a flash, or even a dash flash, whatever, and then leave your team behind and end up dying and then blame your team for not coming in, you know, that kind of stuff. That's what it sounds like to me. Okay, Arcangel Star. So it's got the same passives as the Tear of the Goddess, really. So Relanomicon's the same, except it no longer has mana regen. So it gives you mana now. It gives you mana. Okay, the Unholy Grail, same thing as the Chalice of Harmony. If your HP is lower than your mana, you get HP. If your mana is lower than your HP, percentage-wise, then you get your mana. Gain a portion of damage dealt to champions as blood charges. Heal or shielding another ally consumes blood charges to heal them for amount stored. Well, that's pretty cool. But it doesn't work on yourself. So that would be kind of a good support item. Okay, let's think of Calm, for example. You could do some damage, and then you gain blood charges, and it stacks the healing up, and when you shield another ally, it heals them for a certain percentage of the amount of damage dealt. Okay, Rod of Ages. Still has the old gains health, mana, ability power every minute up to 10 times, so it still has that. So same as the Catalyst passive. Gain mana for getting damage, gain health for spending mana. Okay, Abyssal Scepter. So they added cooldown reduction to this. This used to just have ability power and magic resist, never used to have cooldown reduction. So that's actually really good because people like Annie, like sometimes I don't want to take a mana item and I had to build cooldown reduction boots instead of sorcerer boots. So this is giving me the cooldown reduction and magic resist, and I don't really have to buy those boots, or I can, or have even more cooldown reduction. Scales are level actually. Reduces magic resist of nearby enemy champions, and it scales, so that's really good. Okay, Zhonya's also has cooldown reduction. This is so good. I'm so glad that they made this update. So Zhonya's is the same, they're both the same, apart from Abyssal Scepter scales, and they both have cooldown reduction, which is excellent, really good. That's gonna be crazy OP, because all mages are gonna have like 40% cooldown reduction. Crazy. Elemental dragons. So for the first 35 minutes of the game, one of the 4 elemental dragons will spawn. The moment you take one down, the minimap will indicate the elemental type of the next. The fire dragon increases champion killing power. So I'm guessing you do more damage to champions. Earth dragon increases turret and epic monster damage. Increases health and mana regen. Oh yes, automatic blue buff. Is this forever? This is like a permanent buff throughout the game. We have health and mana regen for the water dragon. More turret damage for the earth dragon. Damage against champions for the fire dragon. And for the air dragon we have movement speed. And then there's the elder dragon. After 35 minutes into the game, more future dragon spawns become elder dragon spawns. The elder dragon is far more difficult to kill than his elemental counterparts, but taking him out grants a powerful burn over time on spells and attacks, and a buff that is stronger for each elemental stack you have. Amazing. Amazing! Burn over time for spells and attacks, and it becomes stronger the more dragons you have taken. Apparently the Rift Herald is also getting a change. It spawns at 6 minutes and it never respawns after you kill it. Its stats are significantly increased, so it's going to be really hard to solo it. Is removed and replaced with a unique super buff. The buff lasts for 20 minutes and it persists through death, so that if you die, you still have the buff. It's for straight 20 minutes. When you're alone, you also build corruption stacks. At 100 stacks, the next attack you do will deal bonus magic damage. Works on everything. Minions, champions, towers. And if you're ranged, the attacks are reduced. Corruption stack rate and discharge damage scale with champion level. So the higher level you are, the more damage it does. Red and blue buffs. Apparently they think that people haven't been using red and blue buffs late in the game, so they're buffing them. Red buff, now every attack you do, it'll immediately trigger the red buff. Instead of having to wait a couple seconds for the red buff to go off, it'll happen immediately. So attack, tick, attack, burn, attack, burn, like that. And so every time you attack, it'll do extra damage, which is a big buff. But damage per tick has been reduced to compensate for the attack speed scaling. The health regen now scales steeply with champion level, but when you're in combat with champions or epic monsters, it turns off. Blue buff now gives 15% AP instead of AP per level, so that's huge. The durations of the buffs are going to be same on the first clear, but then after that, they only have a 90-second duration instead of a 2-minute one. Also with cam respawn timers, when a camp that has the icon at the top, when it has less than 60 seconds to spawn, time is revealed to both teams. So regardless of if you see the buff die or not, the dragon, the Rift Herald, the blue buff, the red buff on either team, on either side, regardless if you see that die, when it has 60 seconds or less to spawn again, everyone will be able to see how long until that spawns. Respawn icon starts dull at 60 seconds and becomes bright with 20 seconds or less. They have increased turret damage ramp. So, inner and outer turrets, their damage ramps up a lot quicker. And if you switch targets, if you switch turret aggro, it'll still maintain that full damage. It's not going to reset the damage, it's going to continue doing that, a lot of damage. And they take 4 shots to max full damage instead of 5. The Takedown Rewards for turrets, the local gold has increased by 80, but the global gold has been reduced by 25. So if you actually kill the turret, you get a lot more gold than if you just let it die and walk away and don't get the local gold. So killing the turret yourself is a lot more rewarding. And inhibitor local gold is increased to 50. So you get 50 gold if you are around the inhib when you kill it. You can now do magic damage instead of attack damage onto the tower. So if your AP is more than double your bonus AD, then the converted damage onto the turret is magic damage, not physical damage. Base armor and MR on the turrets is increased from 0 to 40. So that's a lot more, so it's gonna be a lot harder to kill. But again, they've changed the turret's health to go back down to now, instead of being 4,000, it's 3,300. Targets are now, however, subject to penetration. So now, reinforced armor, instead of putting 200 armor, now, and magic resist, now it's 66% damage reduction overall. This is what's going to be happening. Like, similar to Jin's 4th attack, how he has a bar above his head, the 4th attack is stronger. Same thing is going to happen when Annie has all 4 charges and has her stun up. There's going to be a monitor over her head so people can tell easier when she has her stun. Her W, if you flash out of it before the cast finishes, it won't hit you anymore. So before, if you flashed as she cast it, where you were standing, you would still die. Now, if you flash out of it, it doesn't hit you anymore, but the range has gone up from 560 to 600. Her Molten Shield, her E, used to speed up Tibbers, now it doesn't anymore. The duration has decreased from 5 seconds to 3 seconds, but instead of her gaining armor and MR, she now has a percentage of damage resist overall. Her ult has gone down a lot. Her AP percentage has been nerfed from 80% to 65%, and her base damage does less as well. The aura of Tibbers has also been lowered. Tibbers has gained a small buff where he gains attack speed and movement speed, decaying over 3 seconds on summon. His auto attack damage, base damage has been nerfed, but he has gained an AP ratio to his damage. Tibbers also ignores unit collision when he first spawns, when he's enraged. It's improved his AI in the form of attack commands and move commands. He can re-acquire target after CC. He has better target prioritization, a longer leash range to Annie, which means he can go further away from Annie without having to come back to her. And instead of standing there when there's no one to attack, he can come back to Annie. If no one's attacking Annie, he will go and attack them, as long as they're within 1200 distance. Otherwise, his priority is low HP champions, or an enemy within 1200 of Annie's body. Now, I'm not sure if Tibbers gains 50% missing health when Annie dies. I'm not sure if that means that Tibbers stays around after she dies. That would be interesting, kind of like a Shaco clone. Shaco, tomato. Tibbers gains 10% max HP per second when out of combat for at least 5 seconds. His auto attack range has increased. He has a larger health bar, which is just a visual thing. The Fiddlesticks Changes. After not moving for 1.5 seconds, he grants movement. He's granted movement speed that increases at levels 1, 6, 11, and 16. If he is immobilized by CC, it resets the passive. His Q range has been nerfed, which is his sphere. His drain, it's kind of been nerfed. His cooldown, instead of him being able to constantly drain your health, and now the cooldown starts at the end of the cast instead of at the beginning. Silence, the little bat that flies around people, instead of being able to fly a maximum of 5 hit at maximum of 5 targets, it can now hit 7 targets. And it now prioritizes targets that he has drained, then nuke targets, and then any target. So, better targeting. Now, if his ult is out of range when you try to cast it, it casts at max range. and it also pings on my way to allies similar to Pantheon ult. Now Viger's gaining AP has changed. He now has a passive instead of his old mana regen per percent of missing mana. It's now hitting enemies with spells, grants Viger 1 stack of extreme evil. Takedowns gain 3 stacks and each stack gains 1 AP. Viger gains 2 AP killing large monsters and large minions, and killing an enemy with his Q gives 1 AP. His W, which is the attack that after a while hits the ground in an AoE. Mana cost is lowered by 10, but now there's a shadow under where the W is going to hit, so you can actually see exactly where it's going to hit. Result, the enemy AP ratio is removed, so it doesn't do a percentage of the enemy's AP as well as his own. Thank goodness they removed that. He could one-shot people with his ult. It also scales now of the target's missing health percentage.